Welcome. We normally would meet in our regular meeting place, but because of the coronavirus, we're kind of limited to staying at home. So I'm going to try a video at home to show you how to make a different kind of Christmas ornaments. Actually, I've been doing quite a few. They're really an interesting thing to do because there's a lot of possibilities that you can use in making Christmas ornaments. The one I want to show you today is a lighthouse like this. There'll be some directions for doing the lighthouse, so hopefully that'll help you some. If you happen to have one of these spindles that Johnny Renfro brought to the club, those are really ideal for making the lighthouses. I've cut them in half. I put them between centers and cut a tenon on one end, then turn that around and put it into the lathe. If you don't have a spindle, you could just take any piece of wood. It's about 4 inches long and roughly 1.5 inches in diameter. That's what I'm going to be turning here. I'm going to start by turning or drilling a small hole in the bottom. When I say small, it's a 1-inch bit, but I'm only going to drill in about 1/8 of an inch. The purpose of that is later we'll plug that up. I'll show you how I'll do that a little later. Yeah, a little bit deeper. Alright, that's all we're going to drill for that one. Now I'm going to take that bit out and put in a 7/8 inch bit. The reason I'm drilling this out is it'll make the ornament itself a little bit lighter. You can drill it whichever way you want. The piece on the bottom, I'm going to put a little name tag in there. You do want to clear out the shavings from time to time so it doesn't overheat. If you don't have one of the name tags, I'll be showing it to you later, but if you don't have one, you could put a quarter in. That would be another possibility, just to plug the hole in the bottom. Or you can make a little wooden hole, or plug, I'm sorry. That's all I'm going to use the drill bit for. Now would be a good time to finish the bottom because you won't have time or an opportunity to come back to that in the future. So if you want to kind of soften up that edge a little bit and do some sanding, now would be a good time to do it. You could put some finish on it. I don't know if that would be necessary, but you could do that. I'm just sanding it down with the various grits. Then I'm going to turn it around. That completes that step. Now we'll take it out of the chuck. And I'm going to put it in a jam chuck. You'll need to make the jam chuck. I've already done that. But that's something you'll have to make on your own. You could put it into the small chuck if you have one that has real small jaws. I find the easiest way to do it. I made a jam chuck and I've made quite a few of these ornaments. This is a good project to do for the ornaments for food bank. This is my jam chuck. The tenon on this is 7/8 of an inch. And so this the hole 7/8, it'll fit right in there real snug, and that's what I want, good and snug. At this point, I'm going to put the live center into it just to give it a little stability. Now, this is going to be the bottom of the ornament. I have a pattern which is kind of pathetic looking, I guess, because I've used it so often. This will also be available with the notes. The bottom, there's a little bit of this that's going to be the ground, sort of after, at the bottom of the lighthouse. I'll mark that. At this point I want that marked. Oh, it's really wobbling. Let's see if we can get that a little straighter. I am going to true it up, so you'll see that. I guess I could have done that first, but I'm going to put a couple more lines on. One is the bottom where the roof, bottom of the roof. And then there's like a walkway under where the light is. That would be where these two small lines are, the lines that are close together. I'm going to eventually cut everything from this top line off, so that will get cut off. Next, I'm going to just cut in here just a little bit to give me a guide. There are dimensions in the notes. When you get the notes, there'll be some dimensions you can follow if you want to. I guess I should have trued that up first. It's pretty rough. The one on this side that I'm cutting will not be quite as deep as the one over here. I want this to taper. This is the main building of the lighthouse. I want that to happen. I want it to taper from the top, coming out toward the bottom. I took a tongue depressor and I put a couple little lines on it. That kind of gives me an idea if I'm deep enough or how deep I want to go. So that, if that would help, I also drilled a 3/8 inch hole in there, and later you'll need that for doing the tenon on the bottom of the roof. At this point, I think I will take a skew and we'll get to work on shaving these areas down a little bit. You want this fairly flat. This is where the light will go. This part up here is going to just be turned away. We're not going to use that at all. Getting a lot of bounce there for some reason. Could use a parting tool or a dam would work well on this as well. This part up here is just going to be, we'll get rid of that. The roof is going to go up there. I'm just going to kind of taper this down, smooth it out. This is the walkway. This little part that sticks up here. taking away some material here. Now I want to taper it from the base here, from this point on up to the roof line, or where the top is. With a detail gouge, I want to just put a little shape to the part that would be the ground. Coming up to the lighthouse itself. I think we're pretty much there. See one area here I need to clean up a little bit. Now I will draw some more lines on here. These are going to help define it a little bit. In order to get the colors in here without them running, I'll put some lines in there. I'll burn some lines in. And my pattern comes in handy for marking these. In the notes, you'll have the pattern, so you can follow that. I find using a skew, just use the toe of the skew, put a line in there, it helps the wire to go where I want it to go. I don't know if you've ever had any problem with losing a wire. I used to have, well, I have a bunch of these wires with sticks on both ends, and they kept falling through the waves on the lathe. So I put a heavy knob from just a handle, door handle, cabinet handle, knob that's real heavy, and that gives it the weight to hold it in place. We're going to burn these lines in, so I've turned up the speed. This, you want to remember you got a hole in the middle of this that's 7/8 of an inch wide, and you don't want to go through and hit that. So as you're turning this down, just be sure you keep it so that you don't run into that hole, and kind of like making a funnel out of what was going to be a bowl. I think we're down to the point where there are two things I need to do yet. One, of course, I've got to do some sanding here, but I think before I sand, I'm going to drill a little hole in here. I'm looking for a place where it would look good to put the light, and I think I'm going to put it right there. Normally, I use a punch, and I don't know where my punch is at the moment. I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole. For the light, I am going to use just a small ball bearing. I like using that probably the best out of all the ones I've made. You could use like map tacks. I did those for a while, but I like the ball bearing best. I'm going to drill about half the depth of the ball bearing. Maybe just a shade over half the depth of the ball bearing. That's what the blue tape is for. That's to help me to see exactly where halfway would be. And that's where I want it. There. Now, it's time to do a little bit of sanding. I'm going to start at Well, I'm looking at it. I was going to start at 220. That's not 220, that's 600. Let's get this turned around the right way. Here we go. I guess it's 180. I'll start at 180. This is a little bit rough on this piece of wood, so we'll just sand up these areas. A lot of people don't like sanding. I know I hear that a lot. You rarely see anybody doing a demonstration that's doing any sanding. I think primarily because they don't like the sand. Personally, I find sanding is just part of the turning process. It doesn't really bother me. I figure there's no use to get excited about it. That's something that has to get done. And I like to make sure that what I am working on comes out well. And I think sanding is part of that. To get a nice end product, you've got to do the sanding. Well, that was 180, 220. The reason I drilled the hole first up here was so that if there were any splinters, it could get sanded out at this point. I also burned the lines first before I sanded, because if the burn wire leaves, sometimes there's a mark, shows where it's been burnt. It kind of darkens the wood. This will erase it off, get rid of any marks like that. The burn wire mark will still be there because it's down below the surface. This was 320, I believe. This one should be about 400. See, the sanding really doesn't take long. Just a matter of doing it. Of course, if you're in club, you don't want to make a mess, maybe. But I think the sanding is probably a little less messy than the turning. This one is 600. I don't wear a glove or anything like that when I'm sanding, because I figure if the sanding gets too hot for my hand, it's too hot for the wood. So I kind of use that as a judge. If I'm sanding and it gets too warm, it's too hot for the wood as well, back off. Either slow down the machine, move the sandpaper more, something so that you don't burn your hands and burn the wood. All right, we've done the sanding. Time to clean off all the dust before we put color on it. Now the camera should be full of all kinds of sawdust. All right, we'll put the paint on it now. What I'm using for paint on these will be India ink. Now you could use markers. There's lots of different things you can use for paint. I guess you can just about use anything you want to use. I kind of like the India ink on these. It gives a nice crisp color, and I find it works out pretty well. The burn lines really help me to be able to keep from going over the area I want. I can keep it within the area. Better not say too much, it might not work. Usually I can paint right up to the black line. I want to be sure that there's no light colored wood showing. But if I go right up to the black line from the burn wire, it'll look nice, and the burn wire will help keep it from bleeding. Now, if you use India ink, if your paintbrush is set a little while and get hard, you can soak them in ammonia. Windex has ammonia, so I put some ammonia in the bottle, and for the moment, since it's going to be a little while before I can go wash these out, I'll just set the brushes down in the ammonia. The next color we'll put on will be magenta. How do I know it's magenta? Because it says so on the bottle. All right, here we go. Magenta. Now I'm going to skip every other ring on here. You could paint them all. Be creative and do whatever you like. Now this one, there we go. I don't want to get it so thick that it takes forever to dry. But I want a good coat on there so it looks nice. Then I have one more. I'm going to use red on the bottom. And that takes care of the painting of those lines. I'm going to let that dry. We'll come back and put a little glitter on it later. The glitter that I'm using will be, I'll show it to you later. I'll show you the can and what it is. It's also in the notes. It also has like a clear spray in it that will put a finish over the whole lighthouse. Now it's time to glue the little ball bearing in here, or light, for our lighthouse. So I'm going to put just a couple drops of CA glue down in the hole here. You don't want too much because you don't want it bubbling out and getting all over the lighthouse part. I sprayed that with some activator. I pushed it in. Now that should stay in place and harden. We'll come back to it in just a little bit. When I come back, we'll cut this piece off. We'll clean up the end of the top here. And in the meantime, we're going to, and we'll do the roof. And we'll put the roof on, then put the glitter paint on the whole thing. So let me move this out of the way. I am not going to take it out of the chuck. Now, if you only have one chuck, you may have to take it out of the chuck. I have another chuck here, so I can leave it in there, and that will make it still be fairly centered. I don't have to worry about it getting off center. Set it over here for the moment, and we'll go to our roof. For the roof, I'm using the spindle on the lighthouse, I think, is maple. The roof is going to be, on this one, it's going to be walnut. What I'm doing is just going to be tapering the end of it here, and then putting just a small tenon on it. I did take it down to a point, and I'll come back here and make the tenon back here. Use a parting tool to make the tenon. Every once in a while I get that, it jumps back on me. Why, I don't know. I want my, did it again. Boy, this one's really giving it to me today. That's because I'm doing the demo. Ah. Well, that took care of that roof. We'll just put another one on. Now this was not a planned event, but that's good, I guess, to see somebody else making an error. For some reason, I have a problem every once in a while with parting tool jumping out of the slot where I'm trying to put it in, and then it'll do things like that. I'll be right back. I have another one set up ready to go, I think. All I have to do is find it. Another piece of walnut. We'll stick this one in and see if we can do a little better job with it. Okay. Well, let's try this one. Oops, it's going to have to be shaped up a little. You probably want your roof just maybe slightly larger than the lighthouse itself. Try again. See if we can do a little better. Not have it jump on me. Basically, what we're trying to do is put a 3/8" tenon on here that will fit down into the lighthouse. I don't like that quite that wide, so I have a 3/8" bit or wrench. If you used your tongue depressor and drilled a 3/8" hole, you could try that. You just have to be careful. If it's spinning wood, it's going to wear down the wood on this real quickly. A set of wrenches really can be helpful in getting your tenons for a small tenon like this down to where you want it. Try it. All right, that's the size we want. We check it out again with the wrench. Works. It'll fit just right. Now, let's do a little sanding. First, before I sand, I've got a point here. And that's going to be a little hard to center a drill on to get it drilled out. So my solution to that is to turn the lathe on, bring up a live center and just barely touch it, which will put a little dimple in there. Now I can take my homemade drill bit. You can see the drill bit itself is real small. I just glued it in a piece of wood, turned it down so that pen cap would fit over it to protect it. And now I can just run this in. Now I've got a hole for the hanger. I'll show you the hanger that I use in a little bit. I think our first step is going to be to do some sanding here. Shouldn't need this 180, but we'll just kind of knock off the corners so they're not sharp. If anything, I want the inside of this to be concave. Cut in just a little bit. That'll help it to sit better on the roof of the lighthouse. Okay, we're going to sand down through the grits again. That was 180, 220, just a little bit here. Doesn't have to be much. Take that out before I get a bloody elbow. 320 or 360, whichever it is. And 400. 600. And 800. A lot of times I'll go up to 2,000. Almost everything I make I'll sand at least 800. But most of these ornaments, considering what I'm going to put on it for finish, I think 800 would be sufficient. Now our roof has been completed except to put that little hanger in there, and we'll do that a little bit later. Let me get around here to cutting this off, and we'll pray that this thing doesn't jump on me this time. I want to catch it so it doesn't fall on the floor. I could saw it off, but I'm not really too concerned. If it's rough, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be on the inside of the ornament. Nobody will be able to see it. All right, the roof is done. We will remove this and go back to our jam chuck. Then we got enough there for quite a few more roofs. Put our jam chuck back on with the lighthouse on it. Paint should be dry by now. Let's get the thing that makes the bloody elbow. Get it back on here. Give us a little support. Spin it, make sure everything clears. Okay, one more time here with this parting tool. I think, yeah, there it comes. All right, that's done. I need a 3/8 inch hole here because remember the tenon on the roof is 3/8 inches. So we'll drill a hole in there, a 3/8 inch bit, just mount it into a handle. We've got a 3/8 inch hole now. Now is the time to clean up the end of this if need be. You see it's kind of wobbling a lot. I don't know how we got that loose. If anything, you want this to be concave again, cut in so that the roof doesn't have a gap between the roof and this part here. All right, that has been completed. Now we'll glue our roof on. Trying to think as I go along, see if I can remember things in the right order. I want to put a little CA glue on this. Do it over here on the table. I'll put a little CA glue on the tenon, then I'm going to shove it in and let that hold it together. If you want, you could put a little around the edges where it's going to, probably don't want to go all the way to the outside edge, but now watch your grain. I particularly want to have this lined up that way right there. Now, little accelerator. Supposed to hold it. It's not holding very well here. That should do it. Nope. Well, I've never had one not work before. This is a demo, so that's why. All right, we'll do it like that. We'll spray this with some accelerator. Now let's try it again. I want that part to the front. Hold it just a second. See if that won't take hold. Ah, I did. I'm going to spray this on the lathe. The disadvantage is you can make a mess on your lathe. The advantage is that it's going to hopefully be spinning and put a fairly even coat on this. I don't want to get this glitter paint on the lathe any more than I have to, so we'll try that. This is the glitter paint that I was talking about. It's a finer glitter than a lot of glitter paints that you buy. This one I find to be a real good one. I got it at Hobby Lobby. It's called Krylon Glitter Shimmering Glistening Gold. I guess you could do anything you wanted to do. But, now I don't want to put a lot of this on. My preference is not too heavy a coat. Oh, check it out here and see if I got it all. I think so. That will also put just a little bit of clear, like shellac or something like that on it. And that will take care of it. Now, it's wet. so I can't grab hold of it and show you the next step unless I take this off. And since I did another one a little while ago, I can show you the rest with this one. What we're going to do is glue the hanger hook on the end of it. My preference for the hanger hook is one of these. Now, I don't know if you can see that well. Hopefully that'll show up. I take these, you buy these in a jewelry where they have the beads and different things for making jewelry, like at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, Walmart, one of those places. I'll just buy these and then cut them off the length that I'm going to use in the hole. I measure that by the drill bit. The drill bit that I earlier used, if I take this drill bit, I can figure out exactly where I need to cut it. I can try it ahead of time, make sure it fits if I need to, but that's basically what I'm doing with it. I'm going to take a little CA glue with a long spout, put it right in the hole, if I can get it in there, squirt a little CA in there. I don't want so much that it's going to run all over the top of the roof. Wrong thing. Let's try activator. I didn't need glitter on that one. I needed some activator on it. Alright, got the activator on. Now I'm going to shove it in the hole. Let's see if we can do that. There. Tell you, these little pliers that have the round needle nose ends are really helpful in doing some of these fine things. Alright, there's the top loop. I like these. I think they just dress it up a lot. You get these hooks either at Hobby Lobby or you can get them at Big Lots will sell them. I wait until just after Christmas and go in when they're marked down 50% off, and I'll buy a bunch of them. So I have a lot of them on hand. And to me, they really dress up an ornament, make it look really nice. Have that hanging on it instead of just a piece of wire or a paper clip. To me, it just gives a little more class. And that's what you want. You want something that looks classy. If we're going to be selling them for food bank, you don't want junk. You want to have some nice ornaments. And if you're making it for yourself, you want to have a nice ornament. Now, the other part that we need to do is to fill the bottom. Remember, we drilled this hole in here to make it lighter. In order to fill that, I have little name tags that will fit right inside. Now again, you want to watch your where your grain is running on the name tag. If you don't have a name tag like that, you may not have these. You can make a plug, just a thin piece of wood, or you could use a quarter in there. You say, a quarter, that's expensive. Well, it's not as expensive as those little name tags. We just want to put a line of CA glue right around this rim here. Remember, the inside hole is 7/8. The outside one was an inch. So that gives me just a little lip in there. If I spray that with some accelerator, it helps. I'm going to line it up so it goes in just like that. Voila! The ornament is finished. I hope you'll have some fun trying these. This isn't the only kind of ornament. You can make all kinds of ornaments. I hope you'll experiment a little bit. You've seen several ornaments brought into club. While you have some time free right now, hope you'll spend some time doing some ornaments. Maybe you want to make some pens. If you want to make pens for donations, pens for the troops, I've got lots of them right now. Give me a call, and I'll be glad to work out something where we can get them to you. Well, we won't have a meeting this month, but let this suffice as your demonstration for this month. Thank you for tuning in.